Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. The Haunter's Tale Podcast, where every whisper, every shadow is a doorway to fear.
And welcome to Haunter's Tale. Carleen, welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really well. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. So excited to talk to you today. Wanted to just kind of dive right in. So you've recently moved back from the Gold Coast. You were in Australia for several years, and that's where you really worked on Halloween events for the first time, correct?
For my very first time was in my mother's garage when I was little in Florida. So I held my first Halloween party, did the signage and decor. But professionally, you're correct, in Australia in 2015, I started my first Halloween event.
Wow. So let's go back though. I want to hear more about this little girl. So have you loved Halloween your entire life?
Definitely since the 80s, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, from Poltergeist scaring me wickedly when I was young to always celebrating Halloween year on year.
So what would be your gateway? Like, what was the first thing that really was it Poltergeist that really kind of like made you think, wow, I really like this. I want to do this for a living. I want to create experiences that do that. What was it? What was it that was your gateway?
Definitely not. If it was Poltergeist, people would think it would be crazy at this stage of my life. No, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me is going to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios when I was about 12 with a handful of friends. I walked through one of their haunts, and in the hallway, it was all pitch black. And when you walked over this one area, it happened to be Perspex. And a light came on, and there was this woman underneath with thousands of live cockroaches on there, banging as you're walking past. And that still sticks in my mind. And it was probably one of the most substantial parts of my upbringing and Halloween experience.
Wow. So I know what you're talking about, and I may know the person responsible for that. So
I bet
that's
you do.
that's fantastic. So from there, I mean, what was your path? Like, tell us a little bit about growing up, school. What did you do to kind of further this idea of creating experiences?
Look, I think growing up in the States, you naturally celebrate all the holidays from St. Patrick's Day to Halloween to Christmas. And so that was just the influence of my upbringing. And it wasn't until the early 2000s that I decided that I wanted to be an event manager and event director. And due to my experiences, plus 20 years being in the entertainment industry, it was just something I formally decided as I become older. And I think as a background of being a creative, doing art, and loving to direct and work with people, I started taking that as a professional career. And Halloween was just one of those aspects that I think it really brings people together. And the theater, the costumes, the aspect of just creating this fantasy type of moment was something that I found attractive. And once I did it out of my own budget, I spent $4,000 and I lost 200, which I was quite proud of myself. It was game on from there.
That's great. So you were in Florida. How did you get to Australia?
So my mom decided to move over to Asia Pacific in the 90s. So we started in New Zealand for 10 years and then moved over to Australia. Um, so it was just, I think it was a choice in all honesty about looking at the government, and she wanted, a safer and different type of environment. So we did the merge. But between the two countries, say Australia and America, it's quite significantly different in the Halloween and the horror scene there.
Yeah. So what is Halloween like for Australia? Like, do they celebrate? Is it culturally this big thing, or is it more of a party? Is it about the scares? What is it?
Look for Australians. A lot of Australians, a larger percent will be anti because they think it's American, even though it initiated, in Ireland and Scotland 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a diverse way of people's perception on that. But year on year, you can see that there's economy growth, people are in costumes, there is that party, but it's on a very low scale. So if you looked at the state, there's hundreds and hundreds of, haunted houses, where in Australia, there's probably about five through the country.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it's different.
so what was it like breaking into kind of the Halloween experience in Australia? Tell me your pathway. What was it that what was the event and the creation of the event and tell me all of the history there.
Look, I just found a venue in the Gold Coast, and Gold Coast is just slightly, smaller town, and hired out the top stairs, liaised with my creative friends, created everything basically from scratch. And I think part of that key to success of my first event, not having a background or following, etc., was joining up with a meetup group. And so they were looking for a costume party, and so I was able to fill that venue with, DJs and, just that lighting and a costume contest and gain sponsorship. So it was just something that I had in my mind, had 3 months to get it together. And it came out great.
So tell me the creative journey behind it. So if I'm coming in as a guest, what was the experience?
All right. For my first one, because this was the upstairs venue, so level one, I tried creating like a haunted house on the staircase, which I advise everyone not to do. So I had like I just had a scare actor on, like, where the stair goes, you've got that void, and then the staircase. I had him sitting there, so it was a little bit of a haunt to actually get into the place. And then I had some decor, whatever, and a little bit of like a facade as you actually got into the venue. And then through there created different looks of different themes. And it was like spooky cocktails and, some Halloween based music, etc. And that costume contest, I did $1,000 costume contest, which I think was also like a huge, attractor. I feel with Halloween events, it's the add-on. It's the offers that become appealing. There's a lot of places that celebrate Halloween, but besides the spooky cocktail and a couple of spice rubs, there's not much else that they offer. So my aim was to be like, how do I create this immersive? And part of that journey was just getting my hands on all industry people that I knew from the entertainment industry to help me build stuff. Because I was like, okay, what do we do to actually make this look cool and,
Right.
unique environment?
Well, it's interesting because, the earlier days of Halloween events, I think what really helped, like in Orlando, helped Halloween Horror Nights was, my thought was that it was a way you didn't have to have a Halloween party at your house. You didn't have to worry about it. You could get your friends, you could go there and have food and drink and music and fun. But then there were these great experiences that kind of took it over the top. And it became again, it was its own cultural event, right? Halloween became this thing where it was like that's what you do for Halloween,
Yeah.
just as much as trick or treating. It's interesting. So that first year, successful, yeah.
Successful in my personal point of view. Out of spending 4,000 out of my pocket, and getting those sponsors and only losing 200 out of that investment, I thought, was fantastic. And I also feel with that level of a startup journey, um, gave me some confidence to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you're raring to go for year two?
So my journey is different from other haunters. I'm not traditional. That following year, I worked for a tourism company within the Gold Coast. And through my establishment with my relationship with the CEO, we used to facilitate citywide events over throughout the year. And through this relationship, I kind of bugged them and became annoying where I'm like, okay, let's do a Halloween event. So we did Surface Paradise Festival. And through that, even though I was a stakeholder engagement manager at the time, had nothing to do with the event team, I was able to facilitate a component that was underneath the official event. And so, say we did the zombie walk throughout the city, and I picked out a venue, did a Halloween party where I did like a little haunt and did the cocktails and did the DJ, etc., and made that part of the official program. So that occurred over 2 years. We then had COVID, and the company also amalgamated. I gained a different position as a marketing and events manager for a shopping center. And due to my owners, was able to facilitate significant festivals. So I did from a 7-day Halloween event. And then it just kicked on from there.
Wow, that's great. So, yeah, COVID was quite a game changer for the haunt industry for a few years. And now that we're on the other side of it, I think haunts are coming back, or just events, Halloween events, and experiential theater and things like that are coming back because, for a year and a half, almost 2 years, we couldn't connect, right? We were told to stay away from each other. Now we want to connect with such a ferocity that I think the audience is really looking for that. It's interesting. So after COVID, is that when you decided, okay, I'm going to go back to the States and I'm going to, start looking at creating immersive experiential events there?
Even though I've throughout my entirety, because I was born and raised as an American, and even though I've lived over in Australia, I would come back and forth.
Yeah.
But to the point of your question, no, I didn't necessarily do that until 2024, where I would listen to people like yourself for podcasts, and I would try to do remote things of tapping into America's industry. But I was pretty homebound in that country. And as I progressed and gained more confidence within my events and became one of Surface Paradise's largest Halloween events, then it was just a slow progression of facilitating events and go, okay, how do I get bigger? What are the, suppliers? Where's my network? And how do I amplify what this is? But in 2021 was the first major event which I capitalized on because that was still that COVID time. And so it was vulnerable, and a little bit scary doing that because you wouldn't really know, as to how many people had to go with COVID regulations. But it was a winner because it's exactly like you stated. People wanted to get out more so than what was prior.
Yeah, it was time to break the doors down. It's like we had been attacked by the zombies and we had boarded everything up and then the zombie threat was gone. So let's go back out. So what was the event through COVID up until, you decide to come back to the States? How did it grow? Also, I'm really fascinated. You brought up marketing. I would love you to share with our listeners what your marketing ideas were and how valuable you feel, or not valuable, depending, you feel marketing and story for marketing are important for immersive and experiential theater.
Again, I was able to create any type of event during my time with this company in the shopping center. And so therefore, for this Halloween event, I did a full-blown haunt running after. We had pop-up little kiosks that I would hire out to like Ripley's Believe It or Not, have like escape rooms, VR, and through that, my background was to get businesses involved. And so I just kind of looked at what can I do to make this massive festival, because it was in a substantial space. And throughout that time, depending on what the shopping center was actually doing, would depend on how it could facilitate an event. So if we were through a renovational period 1 year, I wasn't actually able to do a Halloween event. So it kind of grew on the way that the company was, and I adapted accordingly. Because in my position, I was a marketing and events manager, and I had no team. So it was a one-man band, and I had to really pull out the stuff of being creative, which had its pros and cons. I had the ability to do what I wanted, but also I had no influence of the actual industry to be like, oh, these are the cool things you do. This is the animatronics, AV, etc. Marketing is significant. So is storytelling. Marketing is one of those things that, with no one knowing who you are, or being a shopping center that celebrates Easter as well as the horror haunts, I had to explore what avenues does radio work, PR, social media, do the surveys, and so through that it's that trial and error. Because as you know, technology has adapted so much. Same with marketing, where some traditional mediums aren't that sufficient. So yeah, that was a massive trial and error on that, but it's significantly important.
Sure.
Their names are legendary. Their creations have haunted your nightmares. And they all have one thing in common. They love monsters.
Available on Amazon Prime and Roku.
So now let's jump forward. You're here. You are looking to take the haunt world by storm, which I certainly believe you will. And you just went to IAAPA. Tell me about that journey. What was that like, coming from a very specific point of view, and now seeing another specific point of view where there's lots of opinions? What were the things that you kind of hooked on there and said, yeah, I agree with that?
I think IAAPA is in a league of their own, and I think anyone within the haunt industry, I highly recommend they attend. It is brilliant. Through that, I personally discovered the level of immersive events, the thematic design, and amplification of some of the things that are taking place worldwide are beyond significant, like just brilliant. For me, having a tiny little budget and being a one-man band, it's like here, and how do I get there? When I'm at that lower level, it definitely was one of those events that I saw a lot of different concerts around America attending, which was super cool. It was nice to have that unity, and obviously people are there for more back end things rather than like something like a transfer. So I think keeping your finger on the pulse is really important, even though not everyone has a Disney World budget. That was a brilliant event to see what the current trends are.
So I know that you've visited a lot of haunts and a lot of Halloween events. What is it you look for? What were some of the highlights in the last year, for you, like going to some of these events? What were the things that you said, wow, that's really effective? And what were the things that you felt were like, they missed the boat? Like, what is your hits and your misses?
I think that question is definitely personal for person on person. So for me, I love the apocalyptic industrial type of theming. I found that haunt in Georgia that was Paranoia, I think it was called, and that was brilliant. They say they opened at 8 o'clock, everyone stood out in line, so it was this big, crowd, and then they did fireworks for their opening, and then everyone went in the door. I think when haunts create that festival type of atmosphere is a trigger for me. That's what I love. Like, I love event management. That's what I do. I'm great at it. And it's creating that environment holistically where you're drawing these emotions through the entire experience rather than just that haunt. On that flip side, I find, some known haunts within the industry having two on their property. One is amazing, and then one is a little bit like thrown together, which I find quite fascinating when they've got a brand that has been so significant, 30 years, they're the speaker at all the conventions, and yet they have this discord between their property. The biggest thing I noticed, and I've been to 27 haunts in 2 different states this year, was probably the scares. That the scares weren't necessarily there and the finale wasn't. So when you're at the very end, there's no hype. And going back to your point and some of your specialty within yourself is that you go, okay, where is that story? It's like a horror movie. There's a story that you go, okay, it's calm, it's high, it's calm, it's extreme. You know what I mean? Like, that ebb and flow seems to be missing. And that would be my personal aim, being in this industry, to be able to get the people more involved rather than, oh yeah, that was great, and there's an amazing animatronics, and oh, there's a startle scare, okay.
Yeah.
I know.
I really think the audiences today want that. I mean, they crave that, whether they really acknowledge that or not. But again, it is like it's the art of the story, right? And it's the basics of a journey. Why am I here? Where am I going? And then what is the finish? I think whether it's and they lived happily ever after or not, or they screamed forever and ever and ever, whatever that is, there's always got to be kind of this, okay, that I did it, I accomplished it. The badge of honor. I slayed my dragon for the moment. That's fine. And I think, it's interesting because a lot of the nihilistic approach has been, oh, well, we have to leave this open. And it's like, well, leaving it open's fine, but you still have to have a finish, right? Like, it's done, but then there's more to come, as opposed to, well, now let's just, I remember early in the business, it was always, every haunt you went to, they would have a guy with a chainsaw in the last room because that was the most effective way to get people running out the door. Yeah. And you always wanted to see the exit, people coming out screaming, laughing. Oh my gosh, that was the best, what have you. And it's interesting now because a lot of haunts just kind of slowly let their people out. You're not even sure it's over, right? And in one case, you walk out and it's this very bright fluorescent, like it's like somebody just threw water in your face, like, I think that's one of the things too, and one of your specialties, obviously too, from just managing the event, but also creatively managing, going, hey, here, let's make sure that these beats are there. Especially, I think we went to an event together, and at the end of it, you're like, I wish somebody could just go back in and go, hey guys, I need you to stand here, you to stand here, you to stand here, you to stand here. And this is what your function is in the story. It seemed very free roaming, and people were making up their stories individually within a story, and it got kind of confusing. Yeah. What scares you? Like, are you an easy victim? I mean, do you like startle scares, or do you like the things that give you, the flesh on the back of your neck to stand up? What scares you?
Look, a lot, to be honest, and it's it still really surprises me because as much horror movies that I watch and many haunts, and all the things that I, research and get involved in, if you popped around the corner, I would get startled. I'm one of those people. It's shocking. You would think that I would be immune, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating. I, there was someone that stated that the more that you research on one subject, the more that your natural perception starts changing. So don't know if it's influence where I'm like, oh, did I just see something?
Right.
Just because I've taken in that much horror in my life that I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I also, I come from the school that I spoke with a psychologist once about fear. I was just like, hey, let me pick your brain about this, and I held it with me, and then it became kind of, I did more research about it. But the human body has a fight or flight reflex, right? And when someone scares you or startles you, let me rephrase that. When someone startles you, your adrenaline goes, and it's that kind of adrenaline rush that gives you like, oh, that's fear.
Yeah.
But if I did that to the human body repeatedly, the body would protect itself, and as it went along, those impacts would be less impactful.
Sure.
I always think that the best way is to set someone up for where they're going and let them start. And instead of being scared, it's a sense of dread, right? Dread is also, their mind starts working for you. What am I going to see in there? That kind of thing. And then, oh, I knew that's what it was going to be. Or you can surprise them completely. And in that moment of surprise, then maybe scare them or shock them. So let's go in the way back. So what are some of your favorite influences in the horror genre? Like what are the movies or the shows or the experiences that you've seen that you really put on like your vision board of this is the high watermark?
Throughout my research, I've always tried to get to that point. Um, though horror films and live events, I still find that they're quite apart. I haven't personally known that. But say for one of those influences was a film called Contagion. Half that was that the actors were in these masks, and so their view was like gamified. And I look at something like that you could propose a horror experience similar, where you get everyone on the creepy bus, you mask them up, and you put hazmat suits on and whatever, say it's zombie paintball or whatever. So stuff like that, I think, stands out to go, okay, how would I make it more that it's not an audience observation, it's a participation. So, yeah, some movies give you that level of, I guess, inspiration of what you could physically do. And then there's others that I can't watch, like paranormal. Like, I'm not a paranormal person. I went to Zach Bagans' Paranormal Museum in Las Vegas. You had to sign a waiver. I didn't touch anything. I didn't see the Annabelle doll. I wasn't going to say hello and goodbye. And then they have this massive crystal rock that you need to, cleanse your things. So I think it's that line that you go, okay, where is that fantasy and where is that story? Exactly to your point. And then, where is that aspect of play where, the horror film one is a hard one, because there's so many different things out there, but also when you do watch a bunch of horror movies, the theme is similar, and you go, okay, well, where's the new idea?
Right.
Where's the person that looks normal next door and then, comes in like the Purge, that was a tricky one.
Yeah. So what is Halloween like for you now? The holiday. Do you celebrate, or is it do you dress up? Do you look for a party? Or are you too busy doing haunts?
If I am facilitating a haunt, I definitely am. But even as a director, I will still dress up in costume because I love it. And you have to be. in my view, on that fine line. Because if you freaked out and I'm trying to talk to you or call the ambulance or etc., I still have to have some level of normality. But I think it's a holistic involvement, and you need to be able to step in for an after, or you need to be able to call the police if you need to. So it's one of those things that I do overthink, and I find that Halloween, the more and more you get involved, the more and more you get addicted.
Yeah.
And it's just, for me, it's just figuring out, okay, what is that story? What is that point of difference? Again, like the horror films, you have the 1 million horror films, a lot of slashers, a lot of the same themes. Same with haunts, it's the same things, exactly like we're saying. There's no real finale, there's no real cohesive story. And then I go, okay, the influence and the things that I do, because I do dress up and I do, and the manager and I do all the things. You go, how do I create this new aspect of taking traditional, familiar, and then eventuating it into something like up and coming, like that's your IAPA example. So it's creating this immersive aspect of going, okay, these are all the influences and who I am, because you love it and you can't not to do 16-hour days and feel like you're going to throw up because you're working that much. And creating something new.
What you brought up a couple of times you were a one-stop shop.
I am.
Well, what's great about that, and you just brought it up, is there's the management of the actual event, right? The creative, the setup, and everything. But let's talk a little bit about the other side of that, which you just brought up, which is the operational side. I think that also is where a lot of haunts start to fail, right? Whether, how to keep the thing going as an operator, where to step in, when to step in as an authority, or when to step in with a little bit of fun. What would be your kind of cautionary for operations for haunts? Like what have you learned through being that one-stop shop? Like what are the you must do this, and what are the stay far away from this as far as an operational approach?
Good question. I feel that falls into a few categories. AV, the level of lights, and what you actually use for your FX. I also find staffing is one of those, can be a pain point and can be a massive success. So there's a few that I believe that vary, and it's also keeping some of those aspects organized in advance. I think that's a really important one too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now you're here. What's next? What are you looking to do in the next year, 2 years? What is your dream future?
So 1 to 2 years to dream future, or a world part. Now, my ideal is to create an immersive attraction that's year round. That does, the moment you park your car is when the haunt starts. That would be my ideal. And off seasons, I would do like bands, and be able to get some kind of like level of revenue, or do type of events where it's like theater, where you're, like a Speak No More, where you're part of the actual scene, and then in the Halloween season, create it as a specialty event, like with the actual song. Those are my some of my end goals is to create. I can't say miniature Halloween horror nights, but a real immersive environment, because I think as we get older and as the economy varies and health and etc., I think that there's a lot of variables that come into things. And so my aim and reason for doing all of this is to take someone out of their moment, out of their daily life and all the things, and to create an emotion and connectivity and community, and to be that culture. Like one of the coolest things, particularly in America, is you guys have such a significant community for haunters. From anyone would speak to you, anyone welcomes you, and it's really cool to be part of that family. And then you take that core of industry professionals, expand that out to consumers, and create another world for them. So it's a level of escapism. Because admittedly, like life isn't easy, and as we carry on, yes, there are conveniences like AI, etc. But there's also a lot of things that you have to, combat as well. So that's that end goal. And as I start, it's really going, okay, who's that network? Where are the projects? Who can I liaise with? Are there, a particular supplier? Is there, something like Vera to keep getting to that end goal? Because when you talk about haunts, yes, you could do something in your backyard, but the things that I'm talking about, your budget is
Right.
significant.
I'm author Mark Muncy.
And I'm author Erica Lance.
And this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Join us as we travel through folklore, myths, monsters, legends, and dark history.
Now, we'll be your guide to the spooky side of reality as we discuss cryptids, paranormal, and all things preternatural.
Sometimes we find the truth is way scarier than fiction.
We're on twice a week on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube.
We have amazing guests from all of the areas of the strange and unusual, including witnesses, investigators, and more.
Yeah, with Erica's curiosity and ridiculous array of pop culture and true crime knowledge.
And Mark's decades of experience diving into folklore and the legends with the truth that's behind them.
So join us, travelers, as we take you to the edge of reality, and we'll see you on the other side.
It's interesting too, I've talked to a lot of people about the fact, they talk about Halloween Horror Nights as this top tier. Well, the thing I think so many people forget about is that park existed before there was a Halloween event. So it was a completely immersive experience to begin with. It was a backlot where you were walking into environments. So then there was an overlay. And I think most people that come into it like, oh, I want to get this to Halloween Horror Nights. You're never going to get it to Halloween Horror Nights, nor should you try. The only SeaWorld, Howl-O-Scream, Busch Gardens, if you have a theme park that's well themed and immersive already, sure. But to me, it's like, okay, what do you want the experience to be as opposed to this grand idea? Because you'll get lost in the weeds really quickly. To me, some of the most effective things I've experienced in my life are seance rooms or even escape rooms, which are one small little thing that your involvement in them propels the story forward. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to bring in the future, because I think you're right on the mark there. I saw Sleep No More, and Sleep No More was fantastic. But I wouldn't categorize Sleep No More as a haunt. I would categorize Sleep No More as immersive experiential theater. Yeah. Now, to do that with Halloween, that's going to be fantastic. What do you think about the consumer today? We talked a little bit about this, but what really scares people today? What do you think?
You got some tough questions, my friend. What do I think scares people today? I think some of the traditional things, like people talk about the clowns, the spiders, etc. That is still relevant, believe it or not, through the masses. So I think, definitely, the fear of the heights, etc. So those fundamentals will be there, because it's also a mind play as well. Well, I personally, and again, as we talk innovative ideas and more storytelling, and where is that point of difference of what the component that we all love, like haunts and getting scared and blah, 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 and entertainment. how are you proposing that as something different? So bringing that back to home, I think the apocalypse, having the authoritarian people that are all masked up, that have the guns and stuff, and you're the survivor, has a level of scare that take over. There was a small takeover, not to get into politics and where we are in 2025, but there's a small, okay, you do this and this is your category and this is what I do. And if you're not at this level, you don't get in.
Right.
So it's taking that aspect and creating that realism, like that whole, that there's that sense of survival of the fittest, which in essence there is in the day-to-day life, but creating that as an immersive theatrical entertainment play.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, and it's funny because we're not that we're only a few centuries from being, we've never been a classless society, first and foremost. I don't know, other than, some indigenous, societies, if there ever really was a classless society. There's always a leader in some capacity. And, here's what this person does, and here's what this person does. And I think that really does terrify a lot of people today because we're already in classes, right? We're already high, upper class, middle class, lower class, whatever. But also in what we're allowed to do, we're placed in those because of our situation, but not, there's always this kind of promise that, I can elevate into another class if I work hard, if I follow the dream, what have you. But if that's dictated, which I kind of feel we're there already.
Agreed.
And, to be able to turn that into ultimately, which I mean, it's this dystopian haunt or experience that, to me, that the finale should be some type of cathartic event. I think that would be fantastic. And
definitely.
Yeah. And then, of course, the euphoria of the party afterwards where we're on one big happy humanity.
That you survived. And it's, I'm really glad that you scored that point because COVID, I feel personally, was exactly that. In Australia, and I think that it was similar in the States, you weren't allowed to go bowling, you couldn't do anything, or you couldn't travel without having the vaccine. And if you take something that historic and you see those aspects in movies, etc., and exactly how that is, and amplify that in a gamified real life performance, I think would be ideal. Like that kind of stuff gets me excited.
Oh, that's great. So let me ask you this: are you open to consulting if there are events or experiences currently that are out there that are looking for somebody that can do what you do? Is that something you would consider?
Yes, definitely.
So how can our listeners get in touch with you? Like, how can they say, "Hey, I need you to come save me from myself"?
That'll make both of us. No, I have a little self-run label called Infectious Halloween. So it's just infectioushalloween.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. But being part of this community of haunters and Halloween and horror and all things immersive, I am always open to any discussion, any partnership, anything, because our collective, I believe, working especially in corporate, is second to none.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I can't wait to work with you in the future.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Haunter's Tale will bring you the fright before Christmas. Haunter's Tale, now available.